Welcome to T-POW, the psychology of whatever, where each episode we enter into the world of a great comedy sketch, pop song, artwork, and we explore its psychological themes and how it influences our minds, emotions, happiness, and work through our day-to-day lives. I'm Jeff Downs, I'm a comedy writer and a podcaster. And with me in the studio is...
I'm John Woods, I'm a psychologist.
And we're looking at a Python sketch. Well, actually, it's the Four Yorkshireman, the classic, which is from the last 1948 show. But we are going to be looking at stand-up and other routines. But this is our first one to kick off the pilot. And we're just looking at, simply, we'll play a bit of the sketch as we go through, and we'll stop. And then we're just going to chat. Me and John are just going to chat
and
about...
just hear what stands out for us.
Yes. And I'm the sort of like the comedy geek. I'm a comedy fan. John is as well, but you're mad into psychology.
Mad into psychology.
So how long have you been doing psychology for then?
Nearly 20 years.
Nearly 20 years.
Nearly 20 years. And I'm happy to take my psychological way of thinking into the world of comedy, which is what I'm being prompted to do today.
Brilliant, excellent. And so come with us on this journey.
And it will prompt debate.
Exactly. This is going to prompt debate. So I've got a brief introduction, so let's get straight on. It's the Four Yorkshireman sketch, which is a parody of nostalgic conversations about humble beginnings of difficult childhood. So this was done in like 1967. First went out on ITV, and it's, for people that don't know, it's four Yorkshiremen sitting round a table, drinking and reminiscing on how bad their childhood lives were. So if you're not familiar, so that's basically what it's about, and it gets more and more absurd. The sketch was originally written for British television for the 1948 show, and it was co-written by John Cleese, Graham Chapman, Tim Brooke-Taylor and Marty Feldman. And the sketch went on to be a classic Python sketch during live shows. So there we go. So let's just start and have a listen. Are you ready, John, for this?
I am ready.
So we'll play a little bit of the opening now, and then we'll stop and have a look. So here we go. Let's play it now. Here we go.
Why, very possible. Not bad at all.
Aye. Nothing like a good glass of Chateau de Chasselet. Eh, Dessart?
Aye, you're right there, Robert. I did right. Who'd have thought, 40 years ago, that we'd be sitting here drinking Chateau de Chasselet?
There's the first bit. That kicks the sketch off. So in psychological terms, and it's about one-upmanship, we like to reminisce. That was one question I had for you.
Yeah, and the reminiscence that is around psychology would be that they're going to reminisce in terms of framing their experience quite positively, no matter how harsh it is. And the psychology that seems to back that up is so people look towards the future that it will be better because the past was okay. So it makes people more optimistic to think of the good old times.
So is this like a comfort blanket we all have sometimes? So if we think about a piece of music or pop record or whatever from the past or a film, what's actually going on there?
I would say it's more than a comfort blanket. It's actually it gives you resilience in moving towards the future.
Okay.
Because and for the typical person, that is a functional way of building their life and exploring the future.
So it's
optimistically, like I said.
Okay, so it's actually helping you cope as a coping mechanism in our thought process. Is that
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
Okay. And so in this, this is quite a common field, or a rather common cultural thing we do as humans.
Yeah, and if we take that sketch, if we take that as an opening line, and building the setting the scene for it, I think that the audience or whoever's listening to it, it'll resonate with them. There'll be an identification. Oh yeah, I feel like that as well.
Right. Okay.
So you've brought in the audience or the listener, and you would do that in conversation as well as in the comedy arena.
Right. Okay.
They would identify with where these thoughts are going in a real sense.
Right. Okay. So it's a bit of it's something that we all feel safe with. It's harking back to our childhood, but they are still, as you say, it's paving a way for us going forward because obviously we don't know what the future is going to bring. So in psychological terms, how do we deal with the future?
Well, we can problem solve. We can problem solve and look at the evidence that's in front of us. But very often we will look at what's happened in the past.
Okay.
Some psychological methods encourage that.
Yeah.
So they might ask a question and say, when you were happy in the past, what made you happy?
Right. Okay.
And you might want to, and then you could draw out that pattern of behaviour or that skill to enable someone to act proactively in the future to make themselves happy.
Right. Okay. So
that would be a dynamic of therapy, shall we say?
Okay. I'll tell you what. Let's move on to the next bit.
Okay.
And
all right,
just see
all right.
what that. So this is now. So they're becoming more absurd in the sort of the chatting about.
This is the next line.
This is the next line.
Okay,
It's
go
about
on,
two
go on.
lines on, but here we go. So.
I was happier then. I had nothing. We used to live in a tiny, tumble-down old house with great holes in the roof.
House? You're lucky to have a house. We used to live in one room, 26 of us. All there. No furniture. Half the floor was missing, and we were all huddled in one corner for fear of falling.
Right. So now. He's really egging it up now.
I was going to say he's really reveling up. Now, what he's done, I think, he's using a format that people can identify. If we talk about metacognition, so that metacognition is people thinking about what they think about. So they're thinking about thinking, and people have identified that when I think about the past, I do that as well, and discuss past events, or alternatively, there might be the identification of the listener with that experience, which we may have had a lot, with older relatives. In my generation, it was, we had a good time in the war. Okay.
So is that metacognition?
The metacognition is understanding that people tend to look at the past with rose-tinted spectacles. Okay. And the metacognition is recognising that that's a pattern of thinking that people develop and demonstrate and exhibit, and that you will yourself, so you catch it in yourself going, that you might do some self-reflection and go, you know what, maybe I was thinking a bit rose-tinted about that time.
So is that why that when we do reminisce or we look back, that they always seem to be better because there's a positive behavioural therapy, like the person that catches the fish, which was £15, but actually was just probably a little tiddler.
Right. Okay. And so psychologically, that is recognised as what people do.
Yeah.
They tend to select positives from the past. Okay. Which make it that rose-tinted past. And that's it brings. I feel that it just brings that out in the audience. They identify with it, but they take it to a surreal.
Yeah.
So they're lampooning.
Yeah.
A cognitive pattern.
Yes.
That people recognise, but they're taking it to a level, and that's what makes it humorous.
And do you think it's because it does go absurd that if they just had kept it very, very normal, why wouldn't it been so funny? Because there is no. So if the next line is, I remember when we had a house with only 4 sofas and 2 chairs.
In my view, if we did it in, shall I say, realistically, it would then be drama.
Okay.
And not comedy. Because drama on stage in a different context reproduces that which we experience within our real lives. I'm coming to a conclusion that someone may disagree with that, but I think it's, for example, if I was an impressionist and I was doing an impression of a character, I would accentuate their little characteristics, make them a lot bigger, and that makes it funny.
Right, okay. But why, massive question now. Why do we then, as humans, react to, where in the psychology terms are we then reacting to something that is overblown? Why would we react to that, and not as opposed to something that was very ordinary?
I think possibly because we're not necessarily expecting it. Or if I'm talking about a very serious topic and I do it effectively in terms of my communication, the audience or the listener or they will take it serious as well. They'll coordinate with me or correlate with me in terms of my emotional mood. If I start to turn it into the ridiculous, because in this, it's tragedy, this sketch. It's talking about what is very serious tragedy and hardship.
It is hard. It is hard.
And we expect our feelings to be concordant with that.
Okay.
But they completely trash it.
They're right.
And
Okay.
that makes it funny because it's outside of our expectations.
Okay.
And when you look into literature of comedy, you have that situation where the comedian or the people acting out, they build up an expectation and then completely change.
Okay.
They turn a corner and you didn't expect that corner.
Okay.
And that's what they're ramping up, in my view.
Brilliant. Let's go to the next part of the sketch and let's hear them. And it's really getting ramped up now. So
We had it tough. I used to have to get out at shoebox at midnight, lick road clean, eat a couple of bits of coal gravel, work 23 hours a day at mill for a penny every 4 years, and when we got home, Dad used to slice us in half with a bread knife.
it's like cartoon violence in a way. Why did they react? Why did we laugh at something like being sliced in two with a bread knife?
There's some schools of thought that feel, or shall we say, expound the view that it's a way, it's dark humour, and dark humour is about being able to manage feelings of tragedy.
Okay.
And so you use humour as a defence mechanism against the really, really stark or difficult emotions.
Yes. So it's trying to. So we're protecting ourselves.
Yeah. So if you bring it in the surreal,
Yeah.
it becomes fantastical. It becomes something that's almost creatively abstract.
Yeah.
And so it becomes an emotion that you can then process.
Now, as adults, we can process that. Now, take, say, cartoon violence of Tom and Jerry's and a child watching, Tom and Jerry hitting each other quite nasty, quite violently. And some schools, some parents say that's too violent. What's happening there? What the child, they're just laughing. They think it's funny because they know no better? Or it just...
That's a good question. That's a good
Is
question.
it? That's my first big...
Yeah, that's I'm not sure. I would have to look at
we can come
research.
back to it in another episode, but that's...
Yes, but I think there's some research that children tend to replicate that behaviour.
Right, okay.
And I would, and this is a conjecture, the children watching it are looking at the visual slapstick of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're Mr. Bean's very popular with young children.
Right.
Mr. Bean very slapstick. The way people move, it is a very unusual way.
Yeah.
That's an unusual behaviour because it doesn't happen in real life.
Okay.
So therefore, it's novel and it provokes humour.
Yeah.
But the children haven't necessarily got the level of empathy or experience to think, you know what, that could really hurt that person.
Okay.
They haven't got that narrative because
Right.
it hasn't been built yet.
Yeah.
So the children might, like if they're on a playground, you observe children, you'll see that the egocentric, if you want to use that word.
And children copy each other a lot. And you were saying...
There is evidence of children watching things like that and then behaving more, shall we say, with more physicality.
Right, okay.
But I want to look at that precise research if I was to quote it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's probably contentious. I'm not sure.
It's bound to crop up again as we go through all the different
will go
stand-up
into that.
routines. Yeah, no, that would be interesting. Well, let's just...
Good point, though.
Well, I've got my first good psychological point in. That's
Absolutely.
definitely... thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Let's just have a listen. So the sketches now, and I'll put a link when we put this out, and you can actually watch the whole sketch for people who have not seen it. And so it's really upping itself now. And I think we get to the last point now because it's gone absolutely ludicrous. So we'll just play that now.
Aye, and you try and tell that to the young people of today. Will they believe you?
And so that's the ultimate sign off there, isn't it? Of what we all know, especially older generations, saying you won't believe, if you tell someone they won't believe it. What's happening there when we do try and brag about our past was better than it was now? What is that again? Is that a macho thing? Is that our ego trying to finally stamp that my life's better than yours? How would you interpret it, that last line?
I interpreted that last line differently. That last line has a function.
Okay.
It's closing down the sketch.
Yeah.
It's the end point.
Yes, closes the sketch.
And in comedy terms, and this is cited in some of my reading around humour, it's the punchline.
Yes. Oh.
And it's a beautiful punchline because it is a cliche that people use.
Okay.
And they are throwing it in there in the context of all that surreal talk.
Yes, yes.
And so that most people in the audience, I would guess, will have heard that line in one form or another.
Yeah.
And they will have heard relatives use it.
Yeah.
You don't understand you people. You young people do not understand this. And they've thrown it into a sketch. And immediately the audience recognises that. And it just brilliant. For me, it's an excellent summary of them almost highlighting how surreal it's been.
But also when we use that kind of technique in life, and we do, because when people go, I went to Scotland on the weekend, that drive, it was 8 hours,
right.
I was there. What's happening there when we out-brag each other on how tough it was, even if it was a car journey, shopping? Is there anything going on there?
Well, you could say it is, because they're all men.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting because they're men, whether it would work with women.
Yeah.
Because men tend to try to outdo each other. You might say, and again, it would be interesting to go into the formal psychological characteristics of the alpha male.
Okay.
They're in the context where they're all very successful people. That's my reading.
Yeah.
They're having the chateau or whatever.
Yeah.
They are all characters painted as alpha males. So the alpha males are there and they're all trying to crank it up so that they are one better than each other, like you're saying. And so it'd be interesting if you looked at the psychology of the alpha male and how it would be lampooned in what is normally the alpha males would compete with each other for their successes. Oh, they would for their hardships. They've always got to get one better on each other.
So do women between the sexes? So men will try and outdo each other in one way. Women have another way of either bragging. Is it similar, or it can be different with women, that they will do it in another way? There's another technique there.
I don't know.
No,
and
fine.
that would be an interesting whether that sketch would work with women and how it would work with women.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's have that as a. We'll go away and we'll come back for the next episode, and we'll have a slight discussion on that.
The gender differences on a particular sketch.
Yeah, well, not on a particular sketch. That as in how we brag, how we one-upmanship,
absolutely.
personship.
Absolutely, it might be the same.
It might be the same. Absolutely,
it might be just a human condition of
be,
competition.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, thank you for that. That was the 4 Yorkshireman sketch. Which was broadcast on 31st of October 1967, and it was part of the At Last in 1948 show. So that was our first episode of The Psychology of Comedy, and we'll probably look next week. I'm thinking about a Richard Pryor stand-up. We'll get into some stand-up. How about that?
Yeah.
So John gets to hear all the sketches before the stand-up routines. He's given like a week to sort of have a think, and then this is when we come together for the podcast. And it spurges out like this. So,
absolutely.
Anyway, listen, thank you for listening. I've been Jeff Downs.
And I've been John Wood.
And thank you for listening to The Psychology of Whatever.